everyone. I'm Contessa Brewer. We are learning more about an unfolding terror investigation. There have been a number of arrests, including an Iraqi refugee in Houston. Let's get straight to Justice reporter Paula Reid in Washington. Paula, what are you learning?
Well, Contessa, this terror investigation that's unfolding this evening will inevitably have significant political consequences because it involves at least 2 refugees. Now, the documents were just unsealed detailing why these 2 have been arrested. I've been going through them, and here are the highlights. One man, a Sacramento man, a 23-year-old male, he was born in Iraq and came to the U.S. as a refugee in October 2012. Now, the Department of Justice alleges that from November 2013 to about January 2014, this man traveled from the U.S. to Turkey and went to Syria, where he fought alongside a terrorist organization. Now, again, he was able to make it back into the United States. And Contessa, that is rare. Most people who go abroad to fight in Syria don't return. They die. So it is incredibly significant that this individual was able to travel to Syria and make it back to the U.S. There's significant concern among law enforcement that individuals who return to the U.S. with that type of terrorism training are a significant threat. Now, the other arrest, the Houston man, he's 24 years old. He was also born in Iraq. He came here in 2009 as a refugee. Now, he is charged with material support for terrorism, which is one of the most significant charges that you can face without actually conducting a terrorist attack. He faces up to 20 years in prison. He is charged with lying in his citizenship application about his association with the Islamic State, as well as weapons training. One thing that is particularly interesting, Contessa, is that the man who actually traveled to Syria and made it back has not been charged with material support. He was charged with making false statements and only faces a few years in prison. It is likely that eventually the Department of Justice will go to a grand jury and add the charge of material support against him as well. It's a common tactic for the Department of Justice to not release all their evidence and not pursue all their charges at the outset, especially if they're watching any other suspects. Now, there was one other arrest reported in Milwaukee. The Department of Justice says that is not a counterterrorism arrest, but it is a criminal arrest that grew out of the Sacramento investigation.
And Paula, just on this issue of people traveling for terror training overseas and then coming back to the United States, does the government feel like it has a good handle on who does that here in the United States and who comes back from terror training?
They do believe they're trying to track to the best of their ability. Again, it's incredibly unusual to go to Syria and make it back to the United States, especially now with the rise of the Islamic State. Now, this individual traveled allegedly from November 2013 and made it back by January 2014. So his travel was a significant time ago, at a time that maybe they weren't tracking this quite as closely. But again, this case is incredibly significant politically because it involved 2 refugees. We already saw the governor of Texas weighing in while the arrests were unfolding. Again, very unusual, talking about the threat that refugees pose, sort of using these arrests as a political statement. And then we have an individual who got to Syria and returned to the U.S. A very unusual case, Contessa, with enormous ramifications for law enforcement and politics in the U.S.
Yeah, we're showing right now Governor Abbott's statement saying this is why he called for a halt to refugees entering the United States from countries that are controlled by terrorists, and he's urging the president to halt the resettlement of these refugees in the United States. Paula Reid in Washington at the Bureau there. Paula, thank you for that.